I've been in the banking and financial services sector for 45 years, starting from a junior official, a management trainee, right up to I was the CEO of in the Emirates and BD Group here, and I became chairman of a bank in India. I continue to be on the boards of a number of financial institutions, the ICICI Bank Group, the Federal Bank. I was the chairman of the Federal Bank. I am on the board of Emirates REIT. I chair the DIFC board. I'm on the board of Aster Healthcare. So a number of governance positions and now and earlier hands-on management positions. Like beauty, corporate governance is in the eyes of the beholder. So how well corporate governance functions or is perceived to function is really in the observer of a particular institution, whether it is an MSME or whether it is a large institution. And therefore, you have to stand up to scrutiny from an external perspective. It's good if some of these processes are developed internally, but corporate governance is really felt when there is robust compliance, robust discipline in terms of financial control. More importantly, best practices in terms of how you treat the various stakeholders, including your suppliers, your customers, and the like. So, in a broader sense, corporate governance is all that. In a much narrower sense, it is making sure that there is independence in terms of governance, there is board oversight, there are clearly laid principles, there is a certain path of evaluation in the process, and it's how well you stand up to scrutiny from an observer's perspective. I think corporate governance holds value for everyone in whether it's in business or non-business activities, including not-for-profit activities. I think you need to have robust governance. Where it is felt is more in terms of in its absence, there is a price to pay, and there is a large price to pay. If you don't have corporate governance and if you're perceived to be managed or governed with less than the right quality, then you pay a price in terms of the financial sector is not very favorable in terms of its terms. They immediately perceive that there is a challenge, there's a problem, and there is a weakness in your organization. And so the support that you can expect from the banking financial sector to start with will start to wither. And I think that's an important consideration. So it's in the interest of the MSMEs that they stand up to scrutiny by putting all the measures in place on their own, rather than having to be asked to come up to standards. Secondly, I think corporate governance improves value for all stakeholders. In a listed entity, and all MSMEs desire to grow and become, outgrow their MSME status. And so one of the key ingredients for such growth is good governance within the organization. So I would sum it up as that, yeah. I think there is still some room to go in terms of each one of them. There is need for as much training, support, hand-holding, because MSME requires finance. Obviously that's the current refrain in the market that the banking sector is not supporting it adequately in terms of funding. But that's one requirement. One reason for that funding not being as good as it should be is, in fact, if there is better corporate governance, there is a likelihood of better support from the banking sector, from the government sector, from the regulatory sector. Nobody wants to deal with something that is not being done sensibly. I think the first step is to accept the need. The owner of the business, the owners of the business, the shareholders need to accept that this is as important as doing business profitably. Doing business with good governance is at least as important as doing it profitably. So, in every action that the owner takes, he keeps the business at a perspective. It is external to him. It needs to stand up to scrutiny, as I said earlier. Secondly, I think corporate governance needs to be codified. You can keep it a dynamic code. It can be revised as we go along according to the size of the firm, according to its requirements. It can be bringing in best practices. Thirdly, I think there are a number of institutions that assist MSMEs to do better than they are doing. And I think reaching out to these institutions is at least as important as doing the business properly. I mean, you have to develop your business. It's more than a full day's job, especially for an MSME. And the advantage of these institutions are that they give you a lending hand. They can look at your business externally without too much attachment to it. Sometimes you're too close to the problem. You don't see it. If you get an external observer, then you get a better perspective and some advice and hopefully some steps to correct your way along. What are the most important governance policies for effective management? I think you need to have the framework of corporate governance, and the framework includes having robust independent audit, having a compliance procedure, making sure that you apply the fit and proper criteria in the recruitment of your team, making sure that they're rewarded, compensated, clarity is given to them in terms of leadership. But the most important element of corporate governance would be that there is a certain ethical code, the way you conduct business. In the long run, that ethical code needs to be defined. And that ethical code is different for each business. And you want to set standards. You want to be the best MSME in technology or in logistics or in consumer products, depending on the sector that you're in. And I think those best practices keep evolving. It's not a static, it's a very dynamic marketplace there, including in terms of corporate governance practices.